Hello and welcome to Hopeful Conversations. Today I am joined by somebody called Terri Homyard. And I've known Terri, weirdly, for probably about 5 years, but only virtually and not having actually spoken to her. So we've emailed quite a lot about logistics of a little peace of mind, Q&A calls and various other things. Because Terri was working for a little peace of mind. That's how I kind of first came across you, I guess. And I don't know when it was. Has it been 6 months or so that Terri, I started following you on Facebook, and you started posting about symptoms that you were having, and then eventually you went through obviously you went through the doctors and had various tests carried out, and you've pretty recently been diagnosed with MS, multiple sclerosis. And there was something in the way that you were sharing that got me curious, I guess, for this podcast, which is all about hopeful conversations. And the way that you showed up, I guess, in your sharing, and the honesty in it, and the sense of hope, I guess. Like, it wasn't, just reading it wasn't like, oh my God, I have been given this diagnosis, that's the end of the world, I'm not going to be operating anymore, over and out, kind of, like I'll just go and hide. I just thought, gosh, there's so much in what you shared around, and hopefully you can elaborate on this, but for me, I just had this sense of, wow, you can be given a diagnosis of something and you can know you're okay. And I think that's huge. And so I would just love to hear your perspective, because that's obviously my interpretation, might not be it at all. But yeah, can you just sort of tell the listeners a little bit about what's been going on, your journey, and where you're at now, I guess.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. It's lovely to meet you at last. I honestly feel so lucky, because since I've spoken with other people with MS, some people have known they've had it for like 10 years and struggled to have a diagnosis. I was poorly and hospitalized in November. I stayed a week in hospital and I was diagnosed on December the 20th. It was really quick, which was amazing. I was really lucky, but it was also a real shock. When I went into the hospital, I'd had symptoms for months, like numb fingers, numb legs, numb toes. But I just had COVID, and I thought it was just a bizarre COVID side effect symptom. So I was just kind of plodding on. And then I woke up one Monday morning and my vision was really, really blurred and double. And to see, I was still working, because I'm really, really famous for my being stubborn. I'm really stubborn. And I was like, I'm not ill, I'm fine. And I was literally working with one eye, trying to work. And I did that on the Monday and the Tuesday. And I booked a doctor's appointment on the Monday, but they couldn't fit me until Friday. So I was like, I'll soldier on until Friday, I'll be fine. And then on the Wednesday, I was trying to work and it felt like my laptop was moving. I was so disorientated and I was like, this is a bit ridiculous. So I rang 111 and they were like, get here within the next 40 minutes. And I was like, oh, it's just a bit of, can't see, I'm fine in myself. So I went in and had all my vitals, and the doctor took me to one side and said, it's anxiety. And I've had anxiety in the past, and I know what anxiety feels like. And he must have seen from the look of my face, and he was like, just to humor you and give you peace of mind, we'll give you a CT scan and then we'll send you home. So I had this CT scan, and an hour later, he called me and my husband into a room and he sat me down and he knelt in front of me. And I looked at my husband and I was like, this isn't not anxiety. And he said, we've found a mass on your brain. You need to stay here and have tests. So for 5 days, I thought I had a brain tumor. And that's what I thought. For 5 days, I was on a drip and I had an infection on my brain. And And I thought, I've got a brain tumor. And I've got 3 kids and a husband and a life. And I sat for 5 days just kind of in a daze and thought, oh, this is going to be tough. But even then I was like, at least it's me. At least it's not one of my kids. At least it's not my husband, because he's a breadwinner. We could handle without me for a few months. If I need to fight cancer, I'll just take a few months off, fight it, and then I'll come back. And then I was released 7 days later and told I had MS. And I was like, phew, MS? It's not brain tumor. This is amazing. And I didn't think that I had it. I mean, I'd seen the Selma Blair documentaries and the interviews and seen how poorly she'd been affected by it. And I knew a lady with MS who was really frail in a wheelchair. And I left hospital and I thought, well, that's ridiculous. I can't have MS because I'm not like them. And I knew nothing about it at the time. I thought it was a one size fits all. You have MS and this is what happens to you. And then I went to see a neurologist on the 20th of December. And yeah, he told me that I had MS. And all the way home on the bus with my husband, I was like, did he say I had MS? He's like, yeah, say it. And I was like, so he said I had it. And he was like, yeah, you have it. And I was like, but did he actually say the words? And he said, yes. He said to you 3 times, you have got multiple sclerosis. And I was like, yeah, but I might not though. And it was just a shock of thinking I had a brain tumor to MS. And of course I went home and I Googled everything and scared myself. And yeah, it was a pretty strange time. It was all very fast and sudden and shocking. And I hadn't had the build-up of the time to think, oh, it might be MS, it might be this, it might be that. It was like, boom, you've got a brain tumor, boom, you've got MS. And it was like 4 days before Christmas, and I don't even remember Christmas Eve. I was saying to my mum this morning, I don't remember Christmas Eve at all. I was just in a daze of relief, really, because I thought I had a brain tumor. And I was like, MS will be a walk in the park. It'll be a tablet every day and I'll go back to normal. But it's not been quite as smooth sailing as that. But yeah. But it's been a real strange time. Definitely.
And I mean, hearing you say, thank goodness it's just MS, like, well, that's fine in comparison to what I thought it was. Like, isn't that amazing? Just that, I remember having that. My daughter, when she was 14 months, had meningitis. And it was a similar kind of relief finding out that she had meningitis, which was really weird. But she was in a coma and we didn't know what was wrong with her. We obviously were fearing the worst, that she wasn't going to come back from that. And to be told that she had meningitis, like, oh right, well, okay, we can deal with that. Yeah, that's fine. She'll just get some antibiotics and she'll be fine. It was that kind of, and I just heard that in what you said. But it's amazing how when your mind kind of goes to the worst case scenario, like always, doesn't it? Like in every situation, the mind will always go to the worst case. And then how interesting it is that the actual thing is never as bad as the worst case scenario. So there's that level of relief.
The knowing is a lot worse than the not knowing. It's the not knowing that is the scary part. And once we know, we feel like we can take control of the situation a bit more, and we kind of have an idea of what's to come. Whereas if you sat there in a hospital going, have I got a brain tumor? They thought I had Parkinson's at one point. It's just that once I knew, I was like, oh, so you know what I've got and you can treat it. And you say that lots of people have it, and I've seen people with it, and yeah, I can get through this. And then I was kind of like, went through all my luckies, I'm lucky I work from home, so if I need a nap in the afternoon, I can have a nap. I'm lucky that my kids are older, because I wouldn't feel safe carrying a newborn baby or a toddler up and down the stairs. But luckily my youngest was 12, so it was like not a nice time, but a better time to have it. And I was always kind of like it could be worse. At least I'm in a stable marriage and my husband takes care of me. And yeah, and for years, everyone had been telling me to slow down. I was kind of running a business and I was chair of the PTA and I was a school governor and I was a hands-on mom and everyone was always like, slow down, slow down, slow down. And I never did. I thought I'll slow down when I'm older, you know, when the kids have gone and I can rest a little bit and let things go. And when you get something like this, it kind of forces you. I have to slow down. There isn't a choice in the matter anymore. I can't pull all-nighters at work anymore or stay up till 1 a.m. baking cookies for school the next day. I can't do it. And there's something quite liberating in that, and being kind of like, it's kind of like having a valid excuse. Not that you need one, but before I was just like, I can't take a break, I can't take a break. And now I'm like, I need to take a break. I need to take care of myself. If my kids need something desperately, but I need a nap, I'm going to have to take a nap. Otherwise, I'm going to be no good for anyone. So it's made me prioritize a lot in my life, and a lot has kind of fallen by the wayside. A lot of guilt, a lot of rushing around, a lot of doing things for the sake of doing things. I used to do things and now in hindsight, I think, why did I spend so much time worrying about this or doing this? Whereas now it's just fallen away and it never mattered. But at the time, it really mattered. It was a big driver for me. So it's taught me a lot in these last couple of months, definitely. Taught me a lot about myself and my marriage and my kids and how resilient we've all been. And yeah, it's been an experience.
Yeah, and just hearing you talk about it, like, gosh, there's so much I want to say positivity, but it's not fake positivity. It's like, I can just hear that, like, presence with what is. Like, this is what the situation is, and to me, it sounds like there's peace there. Like, there's not fighting of it. It's like, there's not a, oh, I'm really tired, oh my gosh, but I need to carry on doing stuff, and this is really bad, and now because I've got this, I can't do other stuff, and what does that mean about me? And like, none of that. What I'm hearing is just a real presence to what is possible and what's not possible now, and there's no suffering in that.
99% of the time I feel absolutely fine. The odd 1% of time I do feel, I'm human. I feel depressed, I feel down. Yesterday I spent kind of an hour watching videos on YouTube and bawling my eyes out at like people who are homeless, who'd found themselves on the streets for no they'd lost a job, it wasn't their fault, or stray puppies on the street. And I was like, oh, and my life is so good. And I do this weird thing, my husband thinks it's very strange. When I'm feeling really depressed, I watch a film about people who are really, really struggling. Like, one of my favorite ones is this film called Jungle with Daniel Radcliffe, and it's a true story. And he's lost in the middle of the Bolivian jungle for like weeks, and he's hungry and he's exhausted and he's frightened. And I'll sit there and I'm like, I'm moaning because my fingers hurt. That's a struggle. And it kind of, my husband's like, why do you watch depressing things when you feel depressed? And I'm like, because it puts into perspective my problems kind of on the grand scale of things. When I'm in my home feeling sorry for myself and being like, oh, I have MS, it's terrible, I just try and think it could be a lot worse. And then seeing people like fighting for their lives and battling through real problems, I'm like, yeah, I've just got MS. I have an amazing family. I have an amazing team of doctors and nurses. I allow myself to moan a little bit sometimes, because going through MS, an MS diagnosis, is a bit like grieving. You do grieve for your old life, but that's a very small sliver of time. I mean, I'm hoping it keeps up. This is quite new to me. I'm hoping that in like 6 months down the line, I don't hit a wall of feeling kind of miserable and sorry for myself. And I said to my husband, the one thing I don't want MS to take from me is me. I don't want it to make me bitter and, why me? I've not done anything. That's the one thing I don't want. I know I can still do anything I want. I just have to do it in a different way than I used to do it before. But yeah, I do have the odd moments of and then I quickly go, oh, it could be worse. I've got my mum's around the corner. I can go to my mum's for a cup of tea, and I've got my dogs, and they give unconditional love. They don't care if I've got MS. If I can't be bothered to like play with them because I'm exhausted, or they miss out on a walk, they don't hold it against me. They love me anyway. And even if I'm laid on the sofa watching TV all day, they'll lay with me and they're wagging their tails, and I know they're having the time of their life. So yeah, so I just try and focus. I try and focus on the good things and not dwell on the bad side. It would be very easy to feel really sorry for myself, but I choose to not do that.
Yeah, I really hear that. And I'm curious, like, you sort of said, oh, I just hope like in 6 months' time I'm not going to hit a wall and kind of be miserable and whatever. And I'm kind of like, I'm curious to know if that happened. What do you know about that?
Well, I try and surround myself with positivity. So when I came from hospital, the first thing I did was, this is the main room that I spend my time in if I'm not working. So I put lots of yellow stuff and kind of bright sunny stuff. We got rid of the sofa, and I was like to my husband, I have MS, I need a reclining sofa. And he was like, yeah, whatever you need. So he bought me a new sofa, and some friends who were a bit like, oh, you're so brave. Oh, and I'm like, no, I'm not brave. Climbing the mountains, brave. Running into a burning building to save a kitten's brave. I'm just kind of, my husband does it all the time. He'll be like, Terry took the dog for a walk today, #brave, #MS warrior. And I'm like, Darren, stop doing that, because it's not brave. And it's not, if it was Terry's jumping out of an aeroplane, yeah, #brave. But I'm not an MS warrior. I'm just somebody who's trying to live the life. But I do try and find positivity in everything. Even silly things like my water glass. My husband drinks water out of a glass. I drink water out of that.
Oh,
It makes me happy, and it's just little things, kind of like find joy in everything. Don't look for the sad, miserable stuff. Just look for stuff that makes you smile and makes you happy. And if I am feeling down, I pick up the phone and I reach out to a friend or a family member. We go out for a meal or a coffee, and yeah, I just kind of don't allow myself to sit in that feeling. Feelings come and go, but when happy feelings come, I embrace them. And when sadness comes in, I just kind of try and distract myself till they've gone, because they don't last long. But it would be very easy to draw the curtains and sit in the house and turn my phone off and avoid people. But that's kind of not who I am. I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to end up bitter and miserable. And I always tell myself, things could always be a lot worse. I have a nice home. I have a lovely kids. I have a great husband. I have everything I need. I'm just not got much energy anymore, but that's a tiny thing.
wow. Yeah. And it is that, I don't know, when you talk about looking for joy, I just think that's really beautiful. Because so many of us find it so easy to slip into, everything's terrible. I don't know whether it's like, I guess it's conditioning, or, that kind of, I don't know, like, yeah, learned behavior almost of kind of noticing all the stuff that's not great. And I just love what you're saying of notice, yeah, there's stuff that's not great, and that's okay. But there's a load of stuff that is great. And the more that we put, it's that whole thing of what we put attention on is what we get more of.
Yeah.
Where our attention goes, flows. It's like, I love what you're saying, because it's exactly that. Like, we've noticed that, yes, there's stuff that can't be done now, but there's all this stuff that can be done. And the more that we look to that, the more we see of that, and the things that are not so great kind of fade into the background a bit more. And it sounds like you're quite a natural at that. Or have you noticed a shift just from this diagnosis of kind of that happening more? Or is it a conscious thing? Or have you always just been a joy seeker?
I wouldn't say I was. Before, I wasn't a negative person, but I was always so busy. I was always do a task, finish the task, find the next task, do the task. And I never took time, and there were books I wanted to read, and there were people I wanted to have a coffee with, and there were things I wanted to do with the kids, and I was always too busy to do them. So now I think I can read the books that have been piling up, and I can watch the movies that I've been wanting to watch for ages, and I do see, I think sometimes you see more of what's on your mind. I don't know if it's a subconscious thing or a law of attraction thing, but when I came out of hospital with the diagnosis, on the way home on the bus, I saw 4 people in wheelchairs, and I'd never noticed people in wheelchairs before. And I said to my husband, for about a week, they were like, everywhere I looked, there were people with crutches and in wheelchairs. And I was like, have these people always been here and I've not seen them, and I've not noticed? I've just seen the person and not noticed they've got a stick. Or am I just attracting all these people because it's on my mind? And now I'm back to normal. Everywhere I go, I pick up a book, I open Facebook, everywhere I see puppies everywhere. I love puppies. If I could be paid to cuddle puppies, I would be living my best life. And my husband will say sometimes, all I see is other people going on holiday. And I'm like, all I see is puppies everywhere. We go walk, I see a puppy. I go to the hospital, there's a puppy on the bus. And yeah, I don't know if I'm actively seeking these nice things out, or it's like if you want to buy a car and you have this idea of a new car in your head, suddenly they're everywhere.
Right.
And you're like, have they always been here and I've not noticed them? Or am I just attracting them into my focus? Because it's bizarre. I went through a phase last year of wanting a Range Rover Evoque, and literally everywhere I went, I saw them. And I was like, surely there weren't this many before. But it is bizarre. And I said to my husband, oh, it's law of attraction. He was like, oh, whatever. He's not into anything like that. He's like, no, it's rubbish. You're wanting to see it. And whether you want to see things or not, if they're positive things, who cares? I mean, if it is law of attraction or you are physically looking for puppies, it doesn't matter, as long as I'm seeing things that make me happy and I'm not focusing on wheelchairs and instead focusing on happy things. Then who cares how and why it happens? I just love that it does. And it just keeps me going. If I sat in the house and had adverts coming on Facebook for walking sticks and saw people walking past the house with sticks and struggling, it would just remind me of my own future maybe. But at the moment, that's not really in my vision. I go to bed every night and my husband's like, does it not scare you that tomorrow you could wake up and be blind or be paralyzed? I'm like, but it might not. And I might spend 5 years going to bed every night thinking, oh, I might wake up tomorrow blind. But then in 5 years' time, I might look back and think, I've wasted 5 years worrying that I was going to go blind. And I didn't. And all that time I've wasted. And my time feels very precious now. If I'm watching a film now or reading a book and I'm not into it, I just stop, and the old me would have to get through to the end. And now I'm like, no, if it's not my thing, move on to the next. My time's precious now.
Yeah, and isn't that funny? Because time's always been precious. Like, you know, like life is precious, and we weirdly forget that. We just have this kind of strange idea that it's, you know, our existence is forever, and yet it's not for any of us, and yet we forget to look for the amazing things. And I love what you said, like, you know, when you do look, when you are conscious, when you put your attention on joyful things, that is what you see. You know, it's like if you focus on all the negative stuff, that is the experience that you have. Thought is creative, right? So whatever's being thought creates. And I just love what you shared around that, because that's my experience. You know, I've lived in a world where I just think people are lovely. I mean, that's just, I've always had that. I've never had a different thought. I just think everybody's lovely. I've worked with homeless people. I've worked with drug addicts, alcoholics, you know, people, ex-convicts, whatever. And I've never had any incident with anyone. It's like my belief, my thought that people are lovely is the experience that gets created. So it's what I create. And I think that's such a powerful thing to know, that and can be cultivated almost. You know what you're saying, it's like, well, yes, I could focus on all the bad stuff about MS, and I could lie in bed, you know, worrying about whether I'm going to wake up blind tomorrow, but I could also look at the fact that actually everything's really cool at the moment.
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing, and I don't know whether you listened to the podcast I did with JP Morgan, but that was his diagnosis of MS many years ago, and he no longer has it. He no longer has the diagnosis, doesn't have any of the symptoms. And it was just fascinating, because that's, you know, that was his experience. It was just like, you know, I'm not going to go into thinking about all the things that could happen, and those things have never happened. You know, and I mean, who knows? But for me, the more I work with people and the more I see for myself, the more that we focus on what's good, or you know, whatever things that we want, the more that we see that's the experience that gets created.
Yeah, I think you kind of tend to get what you expect. We all know people who go, why does nothing ever work out for me? I went on holiday abroad, and I went to Hawaii, and there was a 4-hour delay for the plane. And I'm like, but you're focusing on the 4-hour delay, not the I had a beautiful holiday. And I think if you expect that, I would think, oh, 4 hours delay. Oh, Starbucks it is, a bit of shopping, watch the planes with the kids. I love being in the airport, but I think you can practice and kind of change that and look for that. I mean, mine was, I don't know if this would have happened. I think for the next 10, 20 years, I would have just been busy. And I think I would have got to kind of 60 and looked back and thought, I've just spent the last 60 years just doing the thing and doing the thing and doing the thing and doing the thing, and then having a holiday and worrying about work and then going back to the thing. And yeah, and I think that was the main thing with my diagnosis. I think that hit me the worst. I was like, I didn't have a great teenage years, and I had a mortgage at 18. I was quite independent. I didn't have teenage years. And then my 20s and my 30s was spent raising babies and doing the whole mum thing. And I always thought, if I just rush through this stage, my 40s are for me. And I think that was the one thing that upset me more than even the thought of ending up in a wheelchair or anything like that. It was, I felt robbed at the time. I was like, I've been robbed. My 40s, the kids are older now. I wanted to travel with my husband and spend more time as a couple. because we've been mum and dad for 17 years. I was like, I want to get back to being Terri and Darren, and I want to be able to eat a meal with him without hearing mum every 5 seconds. And I did feel robbed for a good few weeks. But now looking back, now I've had time to settle and process it all. I don't feel like I have been robbed, because even if this hadn't have happened, I wouldn't have focused on my marriage and me. I would have focused on working.
Yeah.
And so the 10 years would have been wasted worrying about the wrong things and putting my attention in the wrong things. So I was like, actually, MS hasn't robbed me of anything. It's given me the chance to cut out things in my life that aren't important, to realize how important things are, and to slow down and enjoy things. I used to work and my dogs would be sat on my lap, and I would completely ignore them. And I'd just be sat typing, completely ignoring them. And they'd look up at me and I'd be like, busy, mummy's busy, I'll take you for a walk later. And now I just sit and cuddle my dogs, and I'm more present with them. I was never present before. I could spend 4 hours being busy and not tell you if the postman had been, or if something had happened, because I was so focused on what was in front of me. And now I just, if I see the postman, I'll like open the window and we'll have a little chat, and I'm just enjoying the small things in life that I would have missed for the next, my 40s would have been squandered in, oh, the kids are older now. And instead of thinking I can take more time for my husband, I would think I can work more hours now. I don't have to work and do a school run. I don't have to stop at 3. I can stop at 5. I can stop at 8. I can stop at 10. And I'd have gotten to 50, been completely miserable, burnt out. My marriage would have been in tatters. I wouldn't know my kids, and I would have wasted another decade. So now I'm like, yeah, slow down, focus on the small things, and just stop what ifing. I used to what if all the time. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if the other happens? And even if I was doing this chat with you, I'd be like, what if there's a power cut? What if Vicky has to go away? What if school call and the kids have broke a leg? What if the dog gets out of the house and gets hit by a car? And now I still do it. My brain will go, what if? And I'll just stop and I'd be like, I've dealt with MS. If I can deal with MS, I can deal with the power cut. I can deal with school ringing and saying that one of the kids is ill. I think we can all deal with more than we give ourselves credit for. And when bad things happen, we don't have to sit and process and work a solution. We automatically just do the thing. And then sometimes afterwards, I'm like, I can't believe how quickly. I mean, one time, one of my friend's little boys, he was choking. He put something in his mouth, and all the mums are kind of screaming and Googling how to stop choking. And I just went over to him, put my fingers in his mouth and pulled the thing out. And they were like, oh my God, that was incredible. And I didn't consciously sit there and think, choking, next steps. I just walked over to him and did the thing. And afterwards I was like, oh, if I'd have thought about that, I would have been worried I'd have pushed it further back, or I'd have hurt him, or I'd have frightened him. But when bad things happen, something in you just takes over, and you just do what you should have done anyway. So there's no point wasting time on what ifs. That's the big lesson that I've learned. When things happen, you just cope, you just deal with them.
That is an amazing thing to know, isn't it? Like, I have that too. Like, I used to spend all my time what ifing as well. And then having been introduced to the 3 principles and the inside out understanding, just seeing that, actually, if I look back at everything that happened in my life, I always knew what to do when something bad happened or when something unexpected happened. I just knew what to do and I did it. I didn't ever have to plan that. Like, you can't plan it, right? You couldn't plan, like, how would you deal with a diagnosis of MS? And, you know, I could sit here, my readers and listeners could sit at home going, oh my gosh, she's amazing. Like, what would I do if I had MS? And it's like, you don't need to go there, because if you have that diagnosis, you'll know what to do. And every moment you know what to do, because every moment we're being guided with that. we know what to do. And just to even look at, to start looking at the truth in that is just mind-blowing. And the same thing for me happened as what you're describing, the sort of what ifs. Yes, they can come, but like I realized very quickly that I don't need to give energy to that. It's like, oh yeah, I'll know. Just know.
Yeah. I used to what if like 200 times a day.
Yeah.
And I'd be looking for it to happen. And then it'd happen. I'd be like, it happened, but it was fine. I was once doing a live webinar, and I had a power cut, and I'd been what ifing about that for weeks, and it happened. And the power came back on. I got back onto Zoom and I carried on. Afterwards, everyone was like, you were so brave, you came back, and you were like, sorry about that, I'm back now. And you just carried on. And I was like, inside, I was a wreck, but on the outside, I was like, it's done, it's dealt with, it's gone, it happened, it's fine. I did what I needed to do, and now I'm back. And at the time I was carrying on, I was thinking everyone will have switched off now, people will have gone, people will think I'm unprofessional. And I must have had like 20 messages afterwards being like, oh my goodness, I could not have come back and just carried on. And I was like, yes, you could have. If it would have happened to you, can't explain it, but you would have just carried on and instinctively known that it was fine, and you would have done exactly what I did. And yeah, it is a nice, it's a lovely feeling having that trust in yourself that you're okay. If something happens to you, that you're going to be fine. I don't need my husband, I don't need my parents, I don't need my friends. It's nice to have them, but if I'm alone in my husband's like, well, what if you're alone in the house and you fall? And I'm like, I'll figure it out. If and when it ever happens, I will figure it out. My phone's always in my hand, so 9 times out of 10, if I fell, I just ring my mom and go, Mum, I've fallen, can you come around that? And I don't waste time worrying about, what if I fall? And my husband does all the time. He must ring me 20 times a day from work. Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? And sometimes I think, am I not meant to be okay? If I wasn't okay, he's the very first person I would contact and say, Darren, I am not okay. But I am okay. Sometimes he's come home and like the bathroom's flooded, or the kids have been sent home sick, and he's like, why didn't you tell me? And I'm like, because you would have been at work worrying, and there's nothing you can do, and I'm handling it anyway. But if I did genuinely need you, I would let you know. But I'm fine, and I'm confident that if anything happens, I'll just deal with it. I know for a fact if I went blind or ended up in a wheelchair, I'd be the happiest blind person there was, because I'd be like, oh, well, I'm blind, but at least I can hear my kids. And I'm not saying it wouldn't be traumatic, it would. But I know I'd come out the other end. People are blind in the world, and they're living really successful, happy lives. They're working, they've got great friends, great relationships. And I know deep down, if that happened, I'd just deal with it just like I've dealt with everything else. Life does throw things at us, and we just take a breath and just look for the joy, look for the puppies. You only look for the puppies in life.
that's the place to end, isn't it? Just look for the puppies.
Look for the puppies.
Fine. Life's fine.
If I get to 100 years old and a news reporter says, what's your secret to a long, happy life? Look for the puppies. Don't look for the walking sticks. Look for the puppies.
Oh my gosh, Terri, I have loved speaking to you. What a joyful conversation. And there's so many nuggets in there, so much for me and listeners to take away. And I think for me, the thing that's really resonated, I guess, was all of your description or talk around presence, of being present and noticing what's here. Because over the last week, I've been doing an experiment actually around that, to be more present, to notice things, to not spend every moment filling every moment with being busy, you know, because it's a habitual thing. It's a Western world habitual thing, and we don't even realize we're doing it, whether it's like scrolling on Facebook because we've got 5 minutes while we're waiting for a friend, or, you know, I don't know, going and scrubbing the floor because we've got 10 minutes before the kids come home, or, you know, it's like just a constant thing, isn't it, of filling every moment. And I really heard in what you said that that's what you used to do. Like you just were doing all the time. And what MS, the gift that MS has given you, I guess, is to stop, because you can't do that, and to just be, and to have moments of just being, and moments to just notice what's actually here. And we don't do, you know, even this week where I've been, you know, trying it as an experiment, I just notice all the busy behaviors that still happen. And so, yeah, what an amazing gift, I guess, you are in showing us that as a possibility, that, you know,
just slow down. It doesn't have to be massive. I was pegging out the washing the other day, and I said to my husband, listen how loud the birds are outside. Have they always been that loud? He's like, probably not. You probably just, instead of rushing to peg the washing out to rush back in the house, I was doing it really slow, and I was enjoying the sunshine, and it was quiet, and I was like, oh, I'm doing something productive, but I'm having a nice time. And I was like, oh, listen to the birds. Oh, I can smell the grass. And I was like, I've missed out on so much being busy. Don't be busy, be still and just don't be busy all of the time. I love your little experiment. So
yeah,
I think we all need a bit more stillness in our life.
Yeah, and you've just given us the perfect reminder of that. I'm so grateful. Thank you so
Thank
much
you
for coming.
to finally talk to you.
Yes, yeah. And we'll definitely keep in touch.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you later. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.